Jackie Munro is a Liberal member of the Legislative Council of New South Wales, and last night she put a motion up for an audit of how many empty houses we have in this state. It passed the Parliament last night unanimously, as Daniel Mookie said. The Labor Party supported this, but she's here to tell us more about it this morning. Hello.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Yeah, good. So unanimous support last night.
That's right. I was very, very pleased that the Labor Party supported my motion. Obviously, it had the support of the coalition and the crossbench as well. And I think it really demonstrates that this is an issue that does cross party lines, and it's important to address the kind of information that we have to make policy.
So what does it mean? Like, how do you do an audit? Because we can look at water bills, and someone texted me earlier in saying you just check out the water bills, but that's not foolproof.
That's right. I think the reality is that we have so many data points about housing usage today that it's about trying to compile a really big set of data to get the most accurate picture. So it could be water usage data. The ABS has started using electricity data as well, so working with electricity companies to find that information. We in New South Wales have the Audit Office, the Productivity Commission, we have Fair Trading. There are lots of bodies that collect lots of information about how we use our land and how we use our homes. So it's about using all the tools that we have to try to get a good picture of the reality.
Right. So that's what it involves, that all those officers will come together. Can you use an AI tool? How will it work? Who'll do it?
Well, the motion wasn't prescriptive about how the audit would occur, and it's really to find out how dwellings are used across the board. So it's up to the government to now take a look at how to undertake the audit most effectively. I've made some suggestions, as I've mentioned, and I think that something like an AI tool is a good way to use the technology that we have to reveal these
amalgamate
insights.
all the data.
That's
Don't
right.
hire consultants, right? That'll cost us more money up front.
Well, we know under Victor Dominello, when he was Customer Service Minister, that he was very, very focused on using information and giving people the power of knowledge through the data sets that we have. So it's really about a continuation of that idea.
So they collect all the data, put it all together, and then what's the hope that you would have? We would know how many empty units and houses there are per street in Sydney or New South Wales.
Yeah. When I came into the Parliament, I realised that we didn't have really good information about what's happening on the ground. And with this information put together, the idea is that we have a real picture so that we can make policy that works, and so that we're not increasing the problem, essentially, because yes, we should absolutely be building more houses across Sydney and across New South Wales. But if many of them are vacant, and possibly up to 10%, and in New South Wales, that could be up to 300,000 homes that are empty across the state. So we're not talking about a small number. This could be quite serious. The problem is we just don't know.
Yeah, well, look, Mary's come in. There's a house next to a cafe in Blues Point Road, hasn't been lived in for years and years after a massive, significant renovation. The owner lives nearby in another beautiful home. There's apartments at McMahon's Point Ferry that have all been vacant for years and years. Makes my blood boil. They're not low-level rentals, but they add nothing to the community and retail cafes in the area. So it seems some people have so much money they don't need to rent them out. But do you want to audit and punish people who have, say, a holiday home or who are renovating so the place is empty anyway?
Well, this is definitely not about punishment. As I've said on your show before, I'm definitely a staunch supporter of private property rights. But what it is designed to do is not only reveal the statistics, but the motion also calls for an investigation for the reasons for the vacancies. So then we get a better picture as to why these properties aren't being used as residential homes.
Right. So if it's my holiday house, then that counts as a reason. I'm renovating. Counts as a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are many different reasons and we have lots of anecdotal evidence, but this is about making those anecdotes really concrete and ensuring that when we make policy about homelessness and social housing and, of course, private property and development, that we're doing so on a solid basis of information.
We sold my parents' home in Pymble 7 years ago to overseas buyers. It's never been lived in since. The same thing's happened to 4 other homes in the street, says a message. There are 3 houses in a row on Northcote Street in Canterbury that have been closed off by construction fencing since at last 2016, says Adam. I mean, that might be a build that's gone broke or something.
You never know.
Yeah.
But it seems so wasteful. And I think it's about the efficient use of our land. We don't necessarily have unlimited amounts of land, and we're talking about doing infill developments a lot more now, where we're building in areas that already have buildings, but
if they're there and they're empty, let's use them.
And
considerable number in Strathfield. It's easy to spot at least one in most street. Marie has an empty ambulance station, takes up 2 blocks of land near her house in Narrabeen, empty for years. What a waste. But, you know, here's one from Deb in Edgecliff, and this is interesting. We've been living in our home for 25 years, Jackie. She says, we've paid off the mortgage, raised our kids, and now we want to be grey nomads. We're going to travel around Australia for 2 years. We had planned to rent our house out, but the land tax makes this non-viable. The current rule allows homes to be rented for 6 months each year to avoid land tax. We don't want to do it, Airbnb, so our house will be empty. So there's a few levers we might need to pull here.
And it's very interesting that's raised, because when I did my inaugural speech to Parliament earlier in the year, I did actually talk about that there should be an extension to 12 months, and that could be just captured in the existing regulatory rules. You just extend from 6 to 12 months. So I absolutely agree. This is not supposed to be a silver bullet, but it's about ensuring that we know why there are vacancies and why people are disincentivized to offer their houses, when actually it could be extremely useful for someone to live in that home.
Wouldn't it be lovely for someone to live there and to look after it, and you know it's going to be kept hopefully well, and then you're providing a service and you're getting some income. Jackie Munro is a Liberal House MP who has put this motion up to do an audit of the empty homes and apartments in New South Wales. It got passed unanimously last night. A lot of these homes are land banks for money launderers, and we've done stories on that, says Jack on the text line. Postmen know about the empty houses. You could include them in the audit.
That's a great idea.
Somebody else, if you want to call, give us a bell, 1300 222 702. Some saying, why should we have to rent out our second homes, which could be a small flat in the city? This is not about prescribing them to do so. It's those that sit empty for other reasons. What other measures are there? We were talking to Daniel Mookie before, the Treasurer. He said he will look at land tax incentives. Some people suggesting you triple the land tax if people are willfully not renting them out for years and years and years. What would you suggest?
Well, I think it's about responding to the reality. So if there are lots of vacancies for particular reasons where people, say overseas investors, should be incentivised to actually use that land for productive purposes, then I think that area
tax
is, well, I think it's about seeing where the levers of incentive are, because paying more money isn't necessarily a disincentive for some people. So we need to look at the different regulatory environments around this. Housing is very complex, as been mentioned. So this isn't about looking at a solution just yet. This is actually just understanding what's the problem, to be honest.
Right.
So,
Step one, find out the problem, which has been very complicated. Step two, hopefully take some sort of action that should, because we might find out how many homes, apartments do you suspect might be out there that could be possibly used?
There are around 3,300,000 dwellings, residential dwellings in New South Wales. There is an estimate that about 10% would be considered vacant. However, within that, there are questions about what is essentially a true vacancy, and again, why these properties might be vacant for different periods of time. So, as has been mentioned, a property might be vacant for 12 months and that could have been utilised, but because of the regulatory environment, there's no incentive to do so, whereas some might be empty for years for other purposes, taxation purposes or international
land
investment.
Banking happens, all sorts of things doing. Yeah, look, I'm getting lots of suggestions here if you want to take notes.
Absolutely.
Former service station on the Pacific Highway, that's at Turramurra, empty for 15 years. Kalara Post Office, empty for at least 20 years, says Monica.
Well,
my gosh.
Some of these issues are also about zoning.
Yes.
And that's also a really critical part about how we have to plan our future growth, because we need different uses of land. But we are expected to have more than 1 million more people by the end of 2041 in Greater Sydney. 1 million more people. And from our National Housing Accord targets in the next 5 years, or 6 years, we have to build 350,000 more houses. We simply don't have the zoning capacity at the moment to do that. So it's all well and good to have the targets if they're set by any government. But if we don't have the real environment, we've got construction companies collapsing, building commencements are down, building approvals, development applications are all plummeting at the moment. So there are big issues to
and you
supply.
mentioned the taxes and things. Someone saying, you know, my parents have moved into a nursing home. If we sell it, affects their pension and their rebate. But I mean, look, we sold my mum's home to pay for that. I think that, but that's a federal issue to look into that. I want to go to Angela in Concord. What have you seen, Angela? What have you seen, Angela?
Yeah, there's some apartments up on the corner of Concord and Patterson Street. And they've been there for absolutely years. And they look like hotel or motel units. So they'd be perfect for some people that need a place to sleep, you know? And it just makes me angry that they're sitting, and the garden's maintained.
Oh, they're mowing the lawn.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But they're empty.
It's so frustrating, isn't it?
A dozen homeless people could live there.
I know. You just want to pick people up and drop them in there, don't you? And put the electricity on for them.
Every time I drive past there.
I think Chris and Sarah earlier were talking about squatters. So perhaps, Angela, you're starting a movement here.
Yeah, I honestly thought about it. I thought I could kamikaze, pick up people in a minibus and put them in this empty home next to me. I didn't do it because I didn't want to break the law, but I hear your frustration, Angela. Justine's here from the Northern Beaches, who works at a non-profit. Hello, Justine.
Morning.
Hi. What are you finding?
Look, we have an amazing landlord who has rented us a house in a very expensive suburb at super cheap rent. However, this last year we had to up our rent by $30,000 purely to cover the land tax. So an amazing landlord wanting to rent it so that we can house young homeless people. And so we were paying very, very low, but we've had to fork out $30,000 purely to cover land tax. And it'd be great if there was a way for landlords to support your not-for-profits, homeless industry, and to not have to pay land tax.
Or to have a discount on land tax. Yes, if they're renting for people like you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're getting some good ideas this morning.
Absolutely.
We'll put them all before Daniel Mookie ahead of the next budget, because hopefully the audit will be done by then,
That's
Jackie
exactly
Munro,
right.
and we might see some action. Jackie Munro is here, Liberal, who put this up before Parliament last night. Unanimous support for it. So there's other suggestions coming in terms of overseas investors. See, if you increase their land tax or if you charge them, it probably won't spur them to make any changes because they're not here, says Chris in Forest Lodge. Like, it's hard to get people who are overseas.
That's what I alluded to earlier, and that's what makes this area so complex, because there are federal and state and, honestly, council regulations and legislation that are all part of this. So it really requires government to be working together, and also with private industry. I think we need to understand why people or why developers are incentivised or not to build these properties.
Yeah, Diane's got a waterfront home in Northbridge on the same street Bob Hawke used to live on. It's been empty for 45 years. That might be our record today. A complex that has been empty for 12 months or so at Merton and President Avenue, Kirrawee. 16 to 20 townhouses, says Keith. Nathan says, do a vacant property tax now. Somebody else texting in saying, hey, if I want to keep a property vacant, that is actually my business. Penny from the Blue Mountains rented out her mum's granny flat, and she's now up for $70,000 in capital gains because she rents it, and she wouldn't have done that if she knew. So that there's tax implications there. So thank you for all your thoughts on that. The counting now begins, and we'll see what happens and whether we get some changes down the track. Keep us in touch with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.